Right, so we're at Weston Pools on the Canal, and we're just doing a bit of edge fishing. Now it's a bit late in the year, and it's starting to slow down, where big pot in your margin with tons and tons of bait, fishing real positive every gear is just not going to work anymore. This is just an F1, this one. Not a bad little fish though. And you've got to try and refine your gear a little bit and think about your feeding in order to try and catch a few, because there is still some decent fish to be caught down the edge. But it's got to be at the right time of the day. So I'm just going to talk you through quickly before I drop back in what I'm actually fishing. Now, down this edge here at Weston, they're quite deep edges, so generally I always feel like you've got to feed them very positively, especially in the summertime, to try and get the fish to get their heads down and catch them properly. Now, when it changes like this and it goes a little bit clear, I feel like you can get away with being a little bit more negative with your feed, and the fish tend to stay on the bottom because they're not really coming in as confidently, if that makes sense. So normally my summer tactics is, 2 hours to go, I'll put 3 or 4 big pots of ground bait in, load of dead maggots, and then keep topping it up with a ball of ground bait every fish reel, try and get the carp in, the big F1s competing. Now what I'm doing today is fishing with corn and micro pellets. I've just got some of the fishery micros and a little bit of sweet corn, just trying to pick out a good little bit for the hook. And basically, I'm just timing it where you're only going to fish it for the last sort of hour, maybe last 40 minutes. So I'm just going to I've basically just fed it sort of 20 minutes before I wanted to go on it, and I'm just going to go straight in. I'm going to just give myself an hour's fishing on there, where hopefully I'll catch a few better fish. Now that was the first fish, that was just an F1, but it's a good time to go in and get a bite. So I'm just going to fill my cad pot up with micros. Got a nice bit of sweet corn on the hook. I'm just going to see if I can get another one, or hopefully one of the Western carp. Now, like I say, generally if you were to fish like this in the height of summer, you'd probably foul hook a few fish and they come in and waft your bait everywhere, and tend to have to feed like real big balls of stodgy ground bait to keep them down and on the spot. Now, as it goes a bit cooler, just behave that little bit nicer, where they'll come in a little bit more casual, picking an odd little bit of bait. I've just had a little liner then, just to keep my rig pinned over the spot. And they just pick up little bits of bait. They just behave that little bit slow, and they almost creep into your peg. I think that's where you can change your approach and just be that little bit more stealthy with everything what you're doing. And you'll still hopefully be able to get that 4 or 5, 6 big fish at the end of the match, that last hour, that could easily win you the match at this time of the year, where the weights tend to drop a little bit. So just going to sit nice and patient. See, I've got my rig tucked nice and close to the bank, basically where I'm fishing down this edge. I'm on a little bit of a point. It's all wooden bordered here at Weston. Again, just a little liner then, don't want to strike at them. It's all wooden bordered here at Weston, so it's perfect where you can pull your rig right in. I've got like a big wooden post I'm pulling my rig into. Might not be able to see it on the camera, but under the water I've got a big post where I'm just trapping my rig, where the fish can't get behind my rig, so hopefully they'll come in and I'll get a nice clean bite and I'll catch a proper fish. So sit and be patient. I've set my trap. Feel like my up bait's right in amongst some loose feed at the minute, so I've got everything set perfect, and it's just a case of waiting for one to pick your piece of corn up and you've got him. Now, what I would say with this sort of fishing is don't think it's going to be one where you're going to be able to go in and keep feeding and getting loads of bites really quick. A lot of the time it's just about sitting, accepting that you're fishing for, you know, give yourself a realistic target, accept that, you know, how many fish am I going to catch in that last hour, you know, 4 or 5 carp last hour at this time of year somewhere, you know, like Weston. Be a brilliant end to your match. You know, there can be some real big fish in these lakes. You can easily go in if you catch 4 or 5 fish and 2 or 3 of them be, you know, doubles or getting on for double figure fish. So you don't need tons of them. You just need to be nice and patient. If you try and force it too much with too much bait, I think at this time of the year, you end up just costing yourself fish that you would have caught, just being a little bit more patient with it. But I've had a couple of liners, so I know there's fish in my peg. Just missed a bite then. So what I'm going to do, I was about to say what I was going to do, is come back, just make sure my shot not slid up a little bit there from where I was fishing. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to reset my trap. Obviously what sometimes happens if you get a few line bites, you know, the fish are coming in your peg and they can just move your bait around and you've not got your trap set like you need it. So all I've done is just fed my bait right on my marker. I've just put my corn right over where I'm fishing and I'm just pulling it into the bank ever so slightly. I've got my rig plumbed up sort of 2 inches over depth, which just means that when I pull my rig into the bank a little bit, oh, that was a little bite again then. I think there's an odd F1 down in my peg at the minute. Feel confident I am going to get a few decent fish down this edge. But yeah, so I'm just pulling my rig into the bank a little bit because I'm 2 inches over depth. I'm hoping that my main bulk of my rig is staying away from where my corn is, so like my shot, that line going straight down to my hook bait. I can easily put the fish off, they can feel it, they can spook out the peg. Whereas if I just lay a little bit of line on, not too much so I'm not going to see the bites, another little sign then, just enough where I can sort of pull my rig a little bit close to the bank. My hook bait's still going to sit over my loose feed, but I shouldn't get too many fish sort of banging into my rig and give me too many liners, but we'll see what happens. Another tiny little indication. But what I'm thinking of doing now, obviously I'll talk to you how I actually initially kicked the peg off. So basically what I did, sort of 15-20 minutes before I wanted to start fishing there, I put like a big handful of micros in with a big pot, 10 bits of corn, and literally hoping that the fish were already wanting to be down the edge, like, or they're looking for some food now. So just put a little bit of bait in, and I was hoping it wouldn't be too long till they'd be on that bait. And by feeding it like that, I haven't had to introduce several big pots of bait to try and attract the fish down. I'm feeding it at the time of the day where they want to be there, they want to feed. So what I think I'll do, if I've caught that F1, had a couple of little liners, but don't feel like there's tons of fish coming in at the minute, I might just introduce that little bit more bait with my big pot. Just let it settle for 10-15 minutes again, try and let a couple of fish come in, and hopefully then I'll be able to go back in and get a couple of bites. Getting a little miss bite again. I'm gonna give it one more feed with my cad pot before maybe try and just introducing that little bit more bait. I'm just feeding a large guru cad pot at the minute of the fishery micros, which you know, when they say a large cad pot, it sounds like that'd be a lot of bait, but you know, when you're fishing in this sort of depth of water, you know, you've got sort of 3.5 foot of water here at Weston in the edge, and you know, if you've got 3.5 foot of water, you've got to put a decent amount of bait in to get them down to the bottom. Like, this is nothing like the amount of bait what I'd feed in the summer. Like, that cad pot's literally a mouthful for one of the bigger carp that are in here. So really, it's just about feeding enough to set that trap on the bottom where I've got a chance of catching one. I think if I feed any more at this time of year, if I start trying to big pot at every fish like what I might do in the summer, you're putting too much bait in, and then when the fish come in your peg and they're just coming in and creeping in, the chance of it picking up your hook bait's quite slim. There's no real competition there, but if you feed minimal and you just set a little trap with a cad pot, when one comes in, hopefully you should be able to catch it. Nope, little sign again. I feel like there's a few F1s there, so that's what I'm going to do. I think if that's the case and you feel like there's carp aren't coming in your peg at all, I think a good idea is just to feed that little bit more bait. So I'm just going to get me big pot. I'm just going to put like a decent handful of micros in. It's probably, I don't know, just under half a pot, maybe 75 mil of micros. I'm just going to get 10 bits of corn. Just pop that in nice and gently. Don't want to make any splash or spread my bait out too much. And why I wait for that to settle, I'll just talk you through the rig. Right, so my rig for today, obviously summertime, I generally fish a real strong setup in general, where all my gear is designed to try and catch a big weight in a short space of time. Now, this time of year, it's not so much about that. You don't need to go in and empty it. You just need to try and make sure you get a few lake carp that are going to boost your weight up, and you're going to get every fish that comes in your peg, you're hopefully going to catch and land. So you just got to try and find a nice balanced setup. So elastic wise, I've just gone for black hydro. I still think you want to go fairly strong on your elastic, but it's a lot lighter than the sort of red hydro that I normally use in the summer. It's just nice where you're not going to bump any fish. You can scale your hook length down a little bit, scale your hooks down a little bit, and it's still strong enough to land any real big carp. So I think that's just a perfect elastic, just black hydro. Main line, I've got 017 main line, still nice and durable. This time of year, you shouldn't have any problems with that. Got two little back shot, they're number 8s. Again, just halfway between float and pole, standard on any of the rigs that I use. Now, depth wise, I've got sort of 3.5 foot of water down this edge, so I've gone for a 4x14 Maggies. Normally in the summer, I fish a really positive carp float with a real thick tip, like a margin diamond, which has got a 2.5 mil tip. This time of year, there's just no need for it. You're not going to be getting anywhere near as vicious sort of liners and indications, so you can just scale everything down, a little bit of a thinner tip, and just a little bit more of a delicate float. So 4x14 Maggie. Coming down to the shotting pattern, I still just stick with a bulk, but I just tend to move it a little bit further away from the hook, whereas I might have it sort of 3 or 4 inches away in summer. Just move that up a little bit. I've got sort of 6 inches from the hook. Still just got a 4-inch hook length on, because I quite like that, because if I feel like I do want to pull it down, if a few turn up, I've got the option to, whereas if you start off with a long hook length, you can't get the shot any closer to the hook. So 4-inch hook length, move the shot up about 2 inches higher up. So I've got the bulk 6 inches away, just not to spook any fish that are going to come in the peg, you know, a little bit cautiously. And I've just got an 015 hook length and a 14 Super LWG for fishing a piece of corn. So nice balanced rig, still fairly strong. You should be able to land anything you're likely to hook on that, but just that little bit toned down from this sort of summer margin bagging gear that you'd normally use. So really important, think carefully about your rig. And just tone it down that little bit at this time of year, and you should be able to go in and hook a few fish late on in the session. So I'm going to get back in. I'm just going to get a piece of corn, Hopefully now with that little bit more bait there and I've give it a chance to settle, I should be able to go in and catch one. Now it's not about filling it in, but it's just about getting enough bait down where you've got the right fish coming into your peg feeding. So I'm just going to fill me large guru cad pot up with pellets. I know I've just not long fed, but I need to go and set me trap. So I'm still going to feed. And again, you've got to be nice and accurate with it. As you can see, I've got a little bit of tape on my pole and I've got a marker on the far bank, basically a blade of grass on the far bank, like a lighter green coloured bit of grass. And I'm just literally lining up with that, feeding me micros, make sure they come out nicely. Don't rush to put your bait in. Swing my rig into position. And I'm just going to pull it into that bank a little bit. And just sit and be patient and wait for a bite. Now I'm hoping that if anything, I'm going to get less indications now I've upped the feed a little bit with that bigger pot. I'm hoping that what's going to have happened is maybe some of them smaller fish that I feel like were in the, there you go. I was hoping some of them smaller fish that I felt like were in the peg were going to have backed off. He's trying to run me around the point. Again, it only feels like it could be a decent F1, but it was a better response. Yeah. Another F1. F1 of about £1.75, £1.5, £1.75. Still not a bad fish, but it was a much better response what I was looking for. It was in, sat and waited, nice positive bite. So hopefully having fed a little bit more is going to have improved my peg. Just sort of tried to settle the peg down a little bit because there was fish at all. I felt like there was fish at all layers and I felt like there was some smaller F1s there. So then I've just picked out a nice bit of corn. Now, I always feel like corn's a good up bait at this time of the year. I don't know what it is. Just seems to work really well. I feel like it's not too big a hook bait, but it's bright enough and stand out enough that the fish still going to pick it up. You know, like the real big up baits, big bunch of dead maggots, double worms, stuff like that, that I'd maybe use in the summer, just seem like they start to lose their effectiveness. It's that little bit too big. Plus, like, I still want to catch the F1s at this time of the year. I don't want to just single out the carp. You know, some big F1s are well worth catching. Some massive F1s in Weston, like, you know, they go up to sort of £7 or £8 in all the lakes here. There's some real big fish. Lots of sort of £3, £3.5, £4 fish. Just a little indication then. And it's just about trying to strike at the right bite, make sure you don't strike too early or strike at liners. It's easy to do it. I get a little bit excitable when the fish are there at the end of the match. They've started to turn up, striking at the wrong bites, trying to rush things. It's just got to try and keep everything nice and calm, sit and be patient. Make sure everything's right on the marker. I've just up one now. Not sure, I feel like it could be another F1. You're not sure. Pulling a little bit. It's either a bigger F1, I think, or a carp. This pulling a little bit. Didn't feel like it was as big as it feels like it is now. So hopefully them carp are just starting to turn up on the bait. Probably been fishing down there for about 25 minutes now, half an hour. I was feeling like they might not turn up for me, but I think this is a carp. If it's not, it's going to be a big F1. Just take my time with him, no need to rush him at this time of the year. Just need to get him in the net. Like that black hydra, it's keeping him under control. Just plodding about a little bit. Yet to mirror. Oh, got him. Just wrap round the line. Not one of the massive ones that you expect to see at Weston, but you know, £4 mirror. Still a nice bonus at late on in your match at this time of the year. And hopefully there's a couple more there where that one come from. Right, so I'm just going to go back in again with a cad pot. Now, that carp come and that F1 come sort of back to back after feeding with that big pot. So that might be a good idea to top up with another handful of micras, but I'm just going to give it one more go because I've just caught one with a cad pot. Hopefully I'll be able to catch another one, so just pop my bait in, right in line with my marker. Get my rig over it, put it in position and just drag it. I'm not dragging it a lot tighter into the bank, it's just to drag it right against that post, straighten all my line up, keep everything nice and direct. Like I said, I've got that little bit of line on the bottom, but hopefully by doing it like this, when the fish takes the bait, get a nice positive indication, I'll have a fish hooked cleanly in the mouth. So see if I can get another one. There we go. So I've just had that mirror, I've dropped back in, and I've got another fish. Again, it's not really doing a lot, but it does feel like an half decent fish. Definitely tell that it's slowed down. You know, and that the fish aren't really pulling like they would do in summer. These fish in here can be an absolute nightmare in the summer. They don't half pull, but these ones sort of just plodding about. Woke up a little bit now. Again, you just want to try and take your time. Try and make every fish count. It's a common this time. Nice carp. Again, not one of the real big ones, but welcome fish. About, again, top lip, probably about £4 again, similar size to the last one. Common this time. Popping back. But, you know what, I'm going to give it one more go. I'm going to have one more go, see if I can get another one. Feel like there's a few there now. So again, just talk through all the little processes again. So a little bit of corn on the hook, look for a nice bit. Don't want one that's too sort of fat, if that makes sense. You just want a nice little bit of corn. Put your bait in, hold your tape marker, look at your marker on the far bank. Just try and make the most of every cast. You know, because you're going to be sat waiting for bites. You don't want to rush your bait in and stuff like that. And you know, you can waste sort of 5-6 minutes if you make a mess of it. But it's crazy, like, I almost felt like it wasn't going to really work, and it's often the case with this sort of fishing. This time of the year, you know, you sat there, you're thinking, is it going to start going under? And then all of a sudden, that last little spell, just before you finish fishing, you just start getting a little run of bites. It can be all the difference at the end of the match, or, you know, if you're having a pleasure session, you catch your biggest fish of the day right at the end, just before you're about to pack up. So you always got to sit there confident, think carefully about how you're fishing it, and hopefully you'll be rewarded with a few better fish at the end of the day. So see if I can get one more. Be nice to get one of the nice big Western residents. Hopefully there's one knocking about. There we go. Don't think that's a carp, but we'll finish on a fish. Hopefully you've learnt a few bits about, oh, it's a nice ghosty F1. Hopefully you've learnt a few bits about, you know, fishing the edge when it's just refining it a little bit. And hopefully you'll catch a few of these and a few big carp. He's a bit angry. So get out on the bank before it goes to winter and the margin fishing completely stops. Have a go with these tactics and I'm sure you'll catch a load of fish.